Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with KC, a segment brought to you by the Keeping It Real with KC podcast. Here, the conversations are raw and casual with people from a plethora of backgrounds. And your favorite host, KC Phoenix.
Welcome back to the Keeping It Real with KC podcast. I, of course, am your host, KC Phoenix, and this is another, as you know, Conversations with KC episode. And I have a guest on with me today, and I will allow that guest to introduce himself.
Greetings. I am Emmanuel Enime, and I am the character coach. And the thing about character, well, let me put it this way. So my God-given purpose is to help you look more attractive, but not the person on the outside, the person on the inside, the real you, your character. And the most effective way to perfect the person on the inside is to have one goal in mind, where you want to get to in regards to your character. And that one goal is, I am going to be joyful even during the difficult times in life.
Okay. Now, you're saying being joyful even during the difficult times, which can be hard at times, because believe me, I've been down that road before. What are some of the things that you do to help you remain joyful during the difficult times?
So you've already mentioned one earlier, decompressing. That's one way to help maintain one's joy, because difficult times come in all shapes and sizes. And sometimes a difficult time is you have to work maybe 20 hours a day for whatever reason or another. And finding a way to have some quiet time in your day is a good way to help that mind relax, to catch its breath. And this way, you're not overwhelmed with so many thoughts. And that's one of the ways to help defend your joy. Yeah. And so I guess let me elaborate on that statement, defend your joy, because being that the goal is to keep your joy so that when you go into the difficult times, it's still there and it lasts through it. So I'll speak in a parable here. You have to think of your joy like it's a snowball rolling down an infinite mountain, and there are no rocks that can cause the snowball to break up. So basically, if the snowball never stops, it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and rolling down the mountain. And you also have to imagine that you are in that snowball. I don't know if you've seen those little balls that people roll across the water, but you have to imagine yourself as if you are in the middle of the snowball and you are rolling it down that mountain. And so that's the best parable right now to help someone understand how to defend their joy. So if you stop, then you run the risk of not having that momentum, because as one goes through life, you can continuously gain more and more and more joy. And so doing things like getting rest and decompressing are ways to help a person not burn out. Because if you burn out, then you get sidelined and you can't effectively defend your joy in such a situation. It's good that you're getting rest, but if you keep burning out, then there's an underlying issue that's leading to that burnout. In some situations, it's maybe a person is working in the wrong purpose. Like they're working in the wrong job. And so another thing that we talked about earlier, writing, that's a good way to help a person get and remain at that mindset. I'm going to stay joyful in the difficult times. And somebody might say, well, that's interesting. Why writing? Well, in part because it can help a person get their thoughts together. And sometimes when a person might be frustrated and they cannot get down to the reason why, it's good to sometimes just straight up write. Like you said you did for your friends. They sent you a picture. You needed to write a story.
Oh,
or a video.
right. The individual who she needed a script written, and she just sent me a picture because, long story short, all of them were actors, and it was 2 kids and an adult man, and of course an adult woman. It was the woman who sent me the picture, and she wanted to pitch the script to some executives and things like that. And she's like, I need a script to pitch. Can you create a show based off of this picture? And I just wrote a script for her and did that. I did a memo deal with her. So yeah, that's how that went down.
And how did you meet this person? Did they find you through like LinkedIn or something, or you just know them?
Actually, it was Craigslist.
Okay.
How I met her. Yeah, I met her through Craigslist. That was when I was living in Los Angeles. And I was looking, because when I first moved to Los Angeles, my goal was to become a script writer.
Okay.
And write scripts because I love creating stories. And through the process, through that journey of becoming a script writer, I happened to meet her via Craigslist. And, she liked the script. And the script got as far as getting the green light to shoot the pilot, but it sort of fizzled out there because people have to understand about 200,000 scripts come into Hollywood every year, give or take.
Okay.
So whether you get the green light and the pilot's done, even if the pilot is done, that doesn't mean that you get signed for a deal to have an actual series, an actual show. And the deal that I did, which I'll never do again with memo deals, is it was allowing her to take it to people. And then if it was picked up by a network, I would receive a payment based off of that. But it signs over all of the rights. And now, throughout my journey, I just don't want to sign over any more rights to anything anymore.
Okay.
It was an amazing experience. I love creating the script, and the rights have reverted back to me. So that's another one of my mini scripts that are in my box that will eventually be done one day. But yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Okay. So you said you used to live in LA. Where'd you move to?
I moved to Texas, to Dallas, Texas, from Los Angeles, California to Dallas, Texas.
Okay. And why did you pick Dallas? Or I guess let me ask you, how was that journey, like moving from LA to Dallas? Was it like a fun journey? Did you have a good time?
My listeners know what went down on that journey because it's in one of my old episodes from last year. I was actually sick the day I moved. I had to do everything myself, breaking down all the stuff in my apartment. The only thing that was moved out of my apartment with help was the refrigerator. That was it. The bed, the L-shaped desk, all of the clothes, all of the appliances, all, the TV, the entertainment center, all of that stuff. I moved every single thing, the exercise bike, all of that stuff I moved myself. And I was sick that day because I had eaten some bad sardines. So,
okay.
But I had to be out by that day because I had a timeline to get to Dallas. And if I had missed the timeline, everything would have been thrown off. So I had to leave Los Angeles, drive to Tucson, Arizona, and then from Tucson, Arizona to Odessa, Texas, and then from Odessa, Texas to Dallas, Texas. Okay. So each night I stayed in one city, which the hotel I stayed in Tucson was amazing. I loved their casino. Which I didn't go to the casino, but it was just it was unexpectedly beautiful. I expected it to be just okay, but when I got there, I was like, wow, this is really nice.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So, well, you said something or actually two things, speaking of character development, that you pushed through, although you were sick.
Yeah, I was praying the whole time. So it's like I didn't have a choice, and the only thing I could do was pray, and that's what I did.
And so that is, in regards to character development, that's an important thing to help a person to have that tenacity, that drive to say, look, hard times are going to come, and sometimes if I get sick, yeah, I need a rest, but there might be times where it's difficult for me physically, but I have to keep moving forward. And I'll give you an example of someone, just in case listeners are like, that's kind of a high mark to say I can keep going. Like in some situations, if I get sick or if I'm in a physically unideal situation, to still keep going. And it's possible. So I'll talk about two women, Amy Carmichael and Gladys Aylward. And I'll hit on Amy Carmichael right now. But if you go and look at their life story on some video documentaries put up on YouTube, you will see that height of character development, that goal that I made mention of that people should aim for, it's possible. Because, for example, Amy Carmichael moved from Ireland, I believe, to India to do mission work. And at one point, while she was working, she had fallen into a hole and broken her leg.
Wow.
And those are situations where oftentimes we want to stop and maybe give up on our mission or give up on our task. But she's paralyzed, she's in bed, and she's writing books. And so the complex she was in, she was taking care of a lot of kids who had essentially been abandoned by their parents. And so she would also still go around the complex. Someone would wheel her around the complex to go talk to people and greet them. And so that's an example of a person having joy in the difficult times. And in part, to defend your joy so that it stays in the difficult times, a person does need to keep moving forward with their God-given purpose and keep going. And you don't want the momentum to stop. And so something else that you said that is good to help a person prevent the momentum from stopping is you had a timeline that you had to get to Dallas by. Mm-hmm. And so whereas maybe if you didn't have that timeline, you would have said, okay, let me rest. Let me get over this fun that I had with sardines, and and then when I'm feeling better, I can go ahead and move. And so I've discovered that if somebody keeps a schedule, and especially if you have appointments with other people and things that you have to do with other people, that's one of those things that can get a person up out of bed if they're maybe like down or something like that, or they feel like they just can't keep moving forward. Having a commitment to somebody can help a person whenever they're down in the dumps, whenever they feel like they're in despair. And so that's a good practical thing that someone can do, having a commitment and just throughout life in general. This way, it's one of those things that can help a person keep going, keep moving forward, because in certain situations, and this isn't something I'm applying to rest, but in certain situations, if you stop moving, then a person is at greater risk of sinking into depression or...
Right. There are certain chemicals associated with, I forgot the name of the chemical, but yeah, when you physically move, it activates certain chemicals in your brain that actually helps you. And it's not coming to me right now what the name of that, because I discussed this with someone. I did an interview with an individual, Eric Winter, I believe was his name, in Australia, and we were discussing things like that.
Wait, so you went to Australia, or this? No. Okay.
Yeah, it was via the podcast. Yeah, and that was one of the things that we had discussed with having that movement too. But movement makes a difference, and also I want to just throw this out here as well: is that hope and faith to make a difference too when it comes to getting through something. Because with that situation in Los Angeles, when I was leaving, I was just literally praying, driving on the road. I'm just like, oh my goodness, please let me make it. Please let me make it. And everything else. And it all worked out. But also when you mentioned momentum earlier, what some people don't realize, and then this is when hope and faith comes in, is that it's almost like a slingshot or a bow and arrow, where sometimes some people start to lose faith or hope because they try something and they get knocked down or they get knocked back. And what they don't realize is that the universe, the divine God, Allah, Yahweh, whatever you want to call the higher source, is knocking you back so they can slingshot you forward and give you that extra, because if you pull a bow back or an arrow back in a bow, then the further you pull it back, the further the arrow is going to go. Same thing with the slingshot. If you pull, the further you pull it back, once you let go, the more momentum it's going to have going forward. So that's why those things happen, and you have to have faith in those types of moments where it seems like things just aren't going right. Because with that Los Angeles situation as an example, there were other things going on top of me moving by myself and being sick, where I'm just like, okay, it was, I guess you could call it controlled chaos, because I had, column A, there were things that were not going right, and then column B, everything was just falling into place.
Okay.
No way to explain it, but it was divine intervention. That's the only way it can be explained. And it's where everything that fell into place in column B almost neutralized all of the chaos in column A.
Okay.
And, here I am in Dallas now. So, yeah. And after that experience, I'm stronger for it.
And so another thing that can also help people is having other people around them. So whenever you do get knocked down, to have other people around you who are full of hope and are full of faith, because sometimes people need to tap into the energy of someone else so they can get resupplied. And so it's a good thing to make sure that you're in a community of people that have that hope and faith and persistence. So this way, whenever life throws that the 1-2 and you might be like dazed and confused, you have a friend on the side who would pick you up and say, "Oh yeah, don't worry, maybe get yourself a little bit of rest and get a few sardines." And and we'll keep moving forward tomorrow. And so it's a good thing to have people, because the knocks are always going to come. And like you said, if you keep moving forward, you're gonna become stronger. And that's an important thing for people to understand and to grasp, is that I got to keep moving forward. It's a must. I need to schedule in breaks, but I got to keep moving forward, because if I quit, then the opponent in this game called life is going to take advantage of that situation if a person quits. And this is where our opponent in this game called life is going to start trying to fill a person's head with thoughts of doubt, with thoughts of fear, with thoughts of hopelessness, with thoughts of despair and worry and anxiety, because it's almost like an animal that's what do you call the predator, and maybe they see their prey. One from the pack is moving a little sluggish, and so they're going to go after that one that's sluggish more so than the healthy and the fit animals. And so that's what our opponent in this life does. When he sees someone is down in the dumps, or they're having a situation in life that makes them more at risk for accepting negative thoughts, then that's when he comes in, and he's trying to get a person to sink deeper and to spiral deeper and to have momentum, but towards negative thoughts. And so that's another reason to have a good group of people around you, because we can lift each other up. Like if you have a ton of joy and you're just bubbling and you're like Miss Amy Carmichael, or the other one, Miss Gladys Aylward, the one that I was talking about, all of that joy bubbling up inside of you. For me, if I see that, then that can make a person who's down say, you know what, there is hope. There is hope. And for example, this Miss Gladys Aylward, so she left the UK and went to China. And her story is absolutely just mind-blowing. But I'll just point out one thing in her story. Mm-hmm. To add to the point of, it's good to have people like this around you. And so in the town she was in, she had developed relationships with the people in the town. And at one point, they called her to go to a men's prison because one of the men in the prison had somehow gotten his hands on an axe, and he had killed a few people in the prison, and the guards didn't know what to do with him. This was, I think, maybe around 1930s. And so they call her and say, hey, go to the prison and sort it out. Now, this woman is like 5 foot tall. And so she's going into a men's prison to sort out an axe murder. And so she goes into the prison and she walks up to the guy and says to him, give that to me. And he gave her the axe. And so just that amount of courage, like being around someone with that level of courage, that's contagious, because it's like, this woman, 5 foot tall. And so this is one of the reasons why it's also good to make sure you are in a community of people. Sometimes, as far as character development goes, to be able to develop your ability to deal with loneliness, it is also important to practice being lonely. And so, because there will come times in life where people will experience that. And so it's important to prepare your mindset to know that, hey, there might come a time in life where maybe it's a year, 2 years, 3 years, that I might have to be lonely for whatever reason or another. Like the young lady, well, she's since passed, but Gladys Aylward, she left family and friends and went to China, did not know anybody there. There was someone that she was going to work with, a missionary that she was going to work with, but she didn't know that missionary. And so, and something else that happened while she was there, that elder missionary died. And so Gladys Aylward is in a foreign country, and she doesn't have any friends. And so, but she still had that, she still was able to maintain hope, maintain courage and faith, and still keep moving forward in her God-given mission. And so the reason why I talk about Gladys Aylward and Amy Carmichael often is because it's a reference that it's like, hey, these are actual people that lived up to that potential of having joy in the difficult times. And you can still, like, after I listened to their stories a couple of times, I still get pumped up, although they've passed a long time ago. Like, I'm still like motivated. I'm like, yeah, I can still feel like their energy. And this is where it's your joy can be eternal. And they're two good examples of having defended their joy, and their joy remained eternal to the point where it's still affecting me, a black kid in Croatia. And so it's possible. And so this is part of my work, is to let people know it's possible to live this life through the difficult times and still have joy and still have hope and not get bitter or let me focus on or hit on bitterness. That the problem with that is it really influences a person to go into uncontrolled anger. And I'll quickly describe it as, because once you have bitterness, then you enter into a revenge cycle. And so somebody does something that, in a sense, disrespects you, then anger grows and gains momentum. And then, because of the driving force of bitterness, then a person seeks revenge. And it's like this loop. And so there's hope against that. And it comes down to, I'm going to forgive. And so with that said, I'm hopeful for everybody on the planet, because it's like, it's possible. And so I'll keep talking to as many people as possible to continue to spread that message and to let people know, look, that eternal joy is possible. It's just some things that people need to understand a little bit more in order to play this game called life. So understand the fundamentals and the tools that can be used in order to successfully play this game called life. And I guess there's a good point to end on unforgiveness, because I'm looking at the 8:50 mark here. But so I'll say it this way. Our thoughts are like seeds. And once a thought gets planted into our mind, it can turn into a plant like that and produce more seeds. And so this is the reason why when a person has unforgiveness against someone, this is why that anger grows and people fly into fits of rage, is because once a thought of anger gets planted, it reproduces very quickly. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until the point where a person explodes in a fit of rage, because it's all of these thoughts. It's like a pressure cooker. And so something has to pop. And so there's hope because there's forgiveness. And the important thing for people to factor in regards to forgiving someone is that at some point in the future, you're going to want forgiveness from someone else. And at some point in the future, you'll do something to someone else and you're going to hope that they forgive you. And so that's something for people to think about in regards to a desire to hold on to a grudge. Is that it's like, hey, you know what? I'll forgive them. And because I want someone to do the same to me in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can't disagree with that.
I can't disagree with that.
I mean, point made. But definitely, I can tell you that for me, and I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this up as well, because you have to get to your other meeting too. One thing that was mentioned earlier about taking the hits, and it's funny because I discussed this when I did Capricorn's reading, which for my listeners, all the readings are up for the month of March. So if you want to listen to I did money readings for the month of March. If you want to listen to them, they're up. But during Capricorn's reading, one thing that was brought up was about taking the hits to get the happiness, because that's the energy that came up during the reading when I did it. And I thought about the last Rocky film. I don't know if you watch Rocky or not, but that's like one of my favorite franchises. And Rocky was explaining to his son, it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep going, is what he had mentioned to us. It was an amazing speech. If you haven't seen that last Rocky, just look up the speech on YouTube. You know, Rocky speech to son, you'll be able to find it.
Okay.
But definitely all the things mentioned in regards to taking the hits, in regards to forgiveness, in regards to surrounding yourself with individuals who have the same energy, because obviously you don't want to be around people where they're constantly seeing things in a negative lens, because that can bring your energy down. But all of the things mentioned throughout this conversation are some vital things that help build an individual's character, is what it does. So
yeah,
I totally agree with that.
And I'll say this, don't forget rest. Put it on the schedule. For example, me, I work 6 weeks, the 7th week off. So every 7th week, the whole week is off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's important getting rest. And so, well, I guess I'll squeeze in just a little bit more nuggets. Every time I rest, it's like, I don't know if you've heard this term, I guess entrepreneurs call it a shower moment. So basically, they're working on something, a project, and when they turn away to do something seemingly mundane, like they're in the shower or cooking or maybe cleaning their home, then that's when a new idea pops into their head, or that's when they see another way or another angle to tackle a project that they were working on. And so since I've been doing this for about a year and a half now, every time I go into that week of rest, I always get a new idea. And I always find another perspective to address something that I was working on right before break. And so it's the new thing, man. Take time off. It's that mind needs it. It needs time to catch its breath, and it also needs to be clutter free so you can receive new ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And me, I can be a workaholic sometimes. So
I'm not saying don't work. I'm not saying it don't work. I'm not saying it don't work, but I'm saying, yeah, you get your work in, but then make sure you're getting breaks as well.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, Emmanuel, it has been a pleasure having you on the Keeping It Real with KC podcast. And for my listeners, you know the thing, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. Until next time, be blessed.